Hello and welcome to Some Cereal for Dinner podcast. I'm your host Ian C. I'm here with my friend Jason. How you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me back.
Good. We are talking about everything Generation X. And today, that's what the podcast is about. And today, I wanted to have you on the show because we've had some really good conversations about music, the kind of music we grew up listening to. And I did a special on the very first episode on hair metal. I know you probably despise hair metal. Do you despise hair metal, or did you?
No, wasn't too much into it.
Would you say you despise it or no?
Yeah, I wasn't a fan.
I was a huge fan, but
I have to admit I was not a fan.
Right. And I was a fan, but as I explained in the video, when I was also there during that transition where underground music came out.
Yes.
And kind of broke, and I was really on board with that scene, and there's a while there where I rejected the whole hair metal thing and tried to pretend I was never into it.
Right.
You know what I mean? I was one of those guys that
kind of like me with new wave music for a while there.
So
junior high school.
Yeah. Right. So we're going to talk about the music we grew up listening to. It's going to encompass a lot of different stuff, but one of the things I kind of wanted to focus on, and it's okay, whatever else we want to talk about, is kind of underground music.
Yeah.
And because would you define yourself as into underground music?
I suppose that depends on what the definition of that is, but in my era, yeah, absolutely. A lot of I guess we kind of have to back up a little bit, maybe give a history about it. But when I finally embraced underground music, your punk rock stuff.
Right.
I grew up in Orange County.
Yeah.
In California, and a lot of those, the Adolescents, Social Distortion. Actually, my cousin was one of the founders of Social Distortion.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he passed
Social
away.
D.
Yeah, he passed away a number of years. That was Brent Lyles.
Yeah.
And he was the bass player.
He passed away?
He did.
Oh.
He did. I guess there was some contention between he and Mike Ness, the singer-guitarist.
Okay.
That is, I guess, still with them. He's kind of he's the lead guy and has been for years. So I just grew up in that era, and that in high school, you had the different groups of people. You had what we called the Hessians, or your headbangers, and then you had, of course, your jocks and cheerleaders, and then where I grew up, they had a lot of Hispanics, so you had your cholos and lowriders and stuff, and then you had.
What did they listen to back in the early in the 80s? Because that was before rap, really.
It was.
I mean, there was some rap that was around, but I mean, I really don't know that culture, like what they listened to.
I didn't spend a lot of time with those people per se, but a lot of it was more Hispanic-based type music.
The kind of stuff you'd hear on the radio today if you turned on a Hispanic channel.
Yeah, there was a lot of that, but they were getting into, some of the. I don't know. There seemed to be a harder flair to it. Some of the music they were listening to, but it still had that very Latin. Influence, of course.
It's interesting because the word underground originally referred to the hippie movement.
Okay.
That's what it originally referred to, and it was almost synonymous with what people called the counterculture movement.
Sure.
And so they would say the hippie movement, the underground movement, and it went from there, that word underground, to being applied to basically synonymous with with counterculture, to being associated with psychedelic music and Pink Floyd and things like that.
Okay.
And from there, it kind of went into, I think it's interesting because as I see it, you had bands that went underground because you had this explosion called the punk movement, which we can kind of stick a pin in at one point and go, okay, that's a movement. Punk blew up. But it was an artificial blow up almost, because the record companies got into it, and
I was in pre-record companies. That was my era, is when I was in those, 82, 83, 84.
Yeah.
Very early on.
Well, in the 70s, they were literally signing bands like after one show in the punk era. and then it went underground. They
Right.
stopped being popular, in other words.
Okay.
They stopped being recognized by the big conglomerate, and then they started going. And then you had a movement. In my opinion, this is kind of what I mean by underground. This isn't an opinion. This is what happened. But how I kind of use the term underground.
Right.
After you get past the historical part of it, you had a group that was popular that went underground. That punk, that early '80s punk movement, like Minor Threat.
Yeah.
Did you like Minor Threat?
I had some of their albums actually. Yeah.
Now, did you like any of the original punk rock?
Well, what do you mean by original? Sex Pistols?
Yeah, Sex Pistols, the Ramones.
Sex Pistols they were okay. You know, they were kind of the, Dead Kennedy. I don't know. The Sex Pistols were all right. Some of their songs I liked, but I seemed to gravitate more toward the few years after that. Some of the what we would call hardcore British punk.
Yeah.
Chaos UK, Disorder, The Exploited, GBH.
Yeah.
All of those bands. Used to go to LA, see them play at where was it? The Olympic Auditorium. It was a wrestling place where they'd have the professional wrestling, and then they turned it in. They'd have punk gigs there. So
cool.
We never called them concerts; they were gigs.
Oh, gigs.
Yeah.
They didn't call them concerts.
Did not call
Did you
them
do
concerts.
any of the pogo dancing?
No. Well, the
See,
slam
dancing
yeah.
turned into mosh.
Moshing. That's correct. That was when you begin to have metal, and you had what they call crossover bands. Okay, and that happened that was in the late '80s that occurred in.
Crossover.
Crossover band, Corrosion of Conformity.
I've never even heard of that band. Which is amazing for me because I know a lot about music. I know a lot about bands, but I've never. I mean, there are so many bands I don't know about.
Yeah, you could. There's stuff. From what I understand, they're still. If they're not still playing, they recently were doing some videos. So, Stormtroopers of Death.
But let me say this because this
Anthrax.
happened. Yeah. Well, they would have been. I would have considered them like thrash metal, like on par, maybe a little bit harder than Metallica.
DRI, Dirty Rotten Imbeciles.
Yeah, I remember them. I remember DRI. Let's see. So,
but that was later though.
Yeah, for sure. But did you after you got into punk, did you retro that? Did you go, oh, okay, there are older punk bands, and then start listening to them, or no? Or were you pretty much?
Yeah, pretty much in that moment of time. Yeah.
So do you? I've often thought of the punk movement as kind of the and I talked about this on the last
of the hippie movement.
Well, the antithesis in a different way, because there was also disco, which was also the antithesis. But I saw the punk movement as the antithesis of the disco movement. It's like the hippie movement died, right?
Right.
For a couple of reasons. We talked about this. The Vietnam War was a serious war. And then after the Vietnam War, and the hippies were like, no Vietnam, all this stuff.
And then it's over.
And then it's over. Yeah. The drug culture failed. They, Rolling Stones even put an article saying that it's over, the dream failed. And I think out of failure, out of an ideological failure, you get two things. You get excess and you get hatred.
Yeah.
And I saw the excess as kind of being expressed in the disco movement.
In the disco movement. Now, just to back up now, so I remember getting into music, probably right around 6 years old, I remember getting into music. And at ages 6, 7, 8, I remember it very clear, man, it's like yesterday, because it was. It was a lot of yesterdays ago. But it was Boston, Led Zeppelin,
or so kind of rock music, arena rock.
Pink Floyd, arena rock, Rush, that kind of stuff. I'd be listening to Southern California, KLOS, their little thing, KLOS, Hip Along the Strip, KMET, all the rock stations of that time. And that, I didn't really get into the disco thing. That was my mom and stepfather's thing.
Okay.
They were of that generation. They go out dancing. Yeah. They go out to the clubs and stuff.
You didn't watch Saturday Night Fever?
I saw it.
Of course you watched it.
I saw it. But the disco thing, I was more into rock and roll. Then I hit junior high.
Okay.
Junior high was my transition time.
Right.
I forgot the name of the show. It was a TV show that when music videos came about.
Oh, was it Friday Night Videos or?
No, I don't. It was in Southern California. I don't remember the show. Now there was MTV also came out.
Yeah.
Very shortly within
Early
that,
80s.
Yeah, in that time period. But it was another show. But they were playing things like Adam and the Ants.
Yeah.
Psychedelic Furs.
Yeah. A lot of new wave was really
New
popular.
Wave, Flock of Seagulls, all of that stuff.
Now this
so
is interesting.
I hate to admit it, but I did have my stint as a junior high kid into that. Then I hit about I think it was my freshman year, and I met this punk rock chick, and she started handing me cassette tapes.
Yeah.
Yeah, she'd burn them off from different stuff, and so all of a sudden now I'm listening to Dead Kennedys. Agent, I remember my first gig. It was at the De Anza Theater, Riverside, California. It was Agent Orange, DI, and 45 Grave was my very first punk rock gig. Yeah, first time I ever slam danced.
So were you into punk rock the whole time? And that was, at that point, if you're talking in the 80s, punk rock was definitely an underground movement.
Very underground.
Because you didn't have like Atlantic Records producing, well, I mean, as far as I know, Capitol Records weren't pushing, the Dead Kennedys and stuff.
No, we were very anti-mainstream. I always had that little rebellious streak in me, even as a...
The singer of the Dead Kennedys actually got beat up at a show. I don't know if you heard about that or not.
I don't remember.
Because they thought he sold out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they did. They basically thought he sold out, and then it was almost there. I love underground music, but there was this idea in underground music that if you take any steps towards being successful, at least a segment of it, not everybody in there, but at least a segment of it, if you took any steps toward being successful, you were a sellout. Yeah. Ipso facto, just automatically you're a sellout.
You're a sellout.
And I disagree with that. There is a line you cross where you are a sellout, for sure, but I think manufactured success is a sellout for sure, but I don't think just natural success. Go ahead.
Hair bands.
Yeah, for sure. Look,
and boy bands.
Yeah, and boy bands for sure. And I was into that when I was a kid. And I talked about that on my Rise and Fall of Death Metal, and why I got out of it and why I cling so tightly to the underground after it kind of broke.
Right.
But we'll talk about that in a minute. But so explain to me then. Did you continue to be into those kind of bands into the late 80s and the 90s, or did your taste change at all?
No. What happened? So again, growing up, it was mainly the arena rock era, early Van Halen.
Right.
I mean, I remember when I first heard early Van Halen, it was like, wow, these guys are. That was edgy stuff, man.
Yeah,
It was really hard rock. And I did a little regressing in my early punk rock. When you said, going back, just to jump, kind of regress here. I did some late '60s stuff. I really started listening to Jimi Hendrix.
Oh, okay.
Things like that, because there was just songs that it's like if it's the music is good, it's good. And that guy was phenomenal, So I started getting into Jimi Hendrix actually as an early punk rocker. I was listening a little bit of some of that stuff. But
Poison? Did you listen?
No,
I'm just joking.
No Poison.
No, they were
no Great White, any of that. But no, what happened is as through the '80s, I maintained, got into some other punk bands of the English variety, and they're still playing Subhumans. So I really got into the thinking of those existential questions of life, and the futility of life, and and there was an overall depressive mood about it. For whatever reason, that kind of drew me into. That.
This is what I see. I see the punk movement as being the hate movement. Kind of fueled by hate, that emotion.
Or hopelessness too.
Well, I think it turned into hopelessness. The original group of punks were very angry. They're very, don't tell me about I'm going to wear spikes and my hair is going to be spiky and you're going to tell me, and I'm the opposite of peace, I'm anarchy and all this stuff. Right. But that, again, that's like eating a diet with only sugar, you know, that burns out after a while.
You can't,
and then you're left
you can't
with that.
sustain that.
You're left with that down. And then I think out of that down came this group of bands called alternative rock, which was heavily influenced by punk, but other things as well.
Exactly.
Other things.
No, I continued listening to that music when I actually went into the Army.
Okay.
Met a guitarist, and I picked up the bass for a while, and he was showing me stuff. And this guy was just phenomenal. He was one of those guitarists that he just listened to something and just start playing it. And in fact, he flew all the way.
I'm jealous.
over to Hawaii. He flew his full stack Randall. He had a Randall full stack, and he had his Ibanez, and he had a Kramer.
I think it was he had an Ibanez. Now, did he play punk or did he play? Like,
no, he was metal.
Metal, okay.
Mm-hmm. But he introduced me into this.
If you say Ibanez, you know, you think not Joe Satriani.
Yeah, well, you do.
Steve Vai.
Yeah,
you know, Steve
no,
Vai.
and Satriani plays a lot of Ibanez's too. Yeah, and he had his Flying V and everything. And this guy was just a phenomenal guitarist.
Yeah,
and he introduced me to Slayer, Dark Angel. They were from Orange County. Speed metal,
so you started
black metal, that kind of stuff. And then I introduced him into punk. Okay, so there was the crossover.
I see.
Okay, then we started picking up on these bands like COC, Corrosion of Conformity, DRI. Oh gosh, there's one that's right. I'm can't think of it. But there was a number of those bands that were in that kind of more thrash, faster beat music, but it would have some intricate guitar solos. You know?
I think that's one of the things that kind of defined metal over against punk was that intricate guitar solo. It was certainly a sense of musicianship.
Hands down, the average metal guitarist could definitely, as far as what's the word I'm looking for? The execution of chords and scales and things like that. Hands down. But I've seen some really good. I mean, I've seen over 200 bands live. And I've seen some punk bands just put on some excellent shows. I've seen some lousy shows too, but there's been some really good ones. One of the funnest shows I ever, when I was in the Army, one of the funnest shows was I saw the Vandals play.
Okay.
Yeah, they came over and they were getting older and everything, but man, they put on just a really fun show.
Cool.
And it was in a real small club, and it was just a lot of fun. But I also saw Megadeth.
Yeah.
And it was, I believe, the last show of their Peace Sales tour in Honolulu. Yeah. And that was phenomenal. That was incredible. Those guys could play.
So you're talking into what years are you talking there?
That would have been, from like 87 to 90.
Okay, 87.
Yeah, the last part of the 80s.
The last part of the 80s. Well, this is interesting because I'll give a brief history of mine. I'll try not to be too overlappy with my hair metal expose that I did, where I did the rise and fall of hair metal. But of course, some of it's gonna overlap. I too was into music at a very early age. I mean, just music spoke to me.
Yep.
But what was on the radio that my mom was listening to, and it was basically bands. At the very beginning, it was
I didn't want to hear Air Supply. Yeah, we'd be being picked up from school, and his mom listened to the radio, and it's like
I listened to Air Supply. I listened to ABBA. I listened to, but I also listened to like I listened to like Twisted Sister. Was coming out around that time, but not that time, but about the time I remember listening.
Mid-late 80s.
I was really super. I'm going to talk about geek stuff here. I mean, I was really super into Michael Jackson. I loved Michael Jackson when I was 10.
Okay.
So 10 years old, I was a huge Michael Jackson fan. Okay.
I was listening at 10. Now, how many years are we apart? 4?
I'm 47.
Okay, so we're 4 years apart. When I was 10, I'm listening to Black Sabbath and Van Halen.
Right. Oh, at 10.
At 10, yeah.
Yeah, well, the Van Halen,
Yeah.
For sure. And Quiet Riot. I did listen to those because that was all
Now
on the
early
radio.
Van Halen. Now
Yeah.
later Van Halen, they
Van Hagar. You're talking Van Hagar.
yeah,
Right?
Van Hagar.
Not Van Halen.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Different. I'm talking early Van Halen too.
Right.
1984.
Okay.
Yeah. Because 1984 came out, and I remember I had a friend who had Quiet Riot, and he had 1984. But I was really into Michael Jackson, but I liked all those other bands too.
Right.
But at 12, so this is what happened to me at 12. At 12, I had a friend who he wasn't blind. Maybe at the time he was blind. I can't remember. He may have just gone blind. I knew him before he was blind.
Okay.
But a tragic accident. Phenomenal guitarist, and his whole family all his uncles were musicians, guitar players, and he was the best out of all of them. And I think it obviously had something to do with him being blind. But he gave me Iron Maiden tape, and that was my exposure into metal. And I was heavy metal from then up until about 17. Okay, about 17.
Okay.
I was totally heavy metal. And out of heavy metal, I was more into the glam metal. I really was a huge Motley Crue fan, huge Rat, huge Dokken, those bands like that.
Right.
When Poison first came out, I didn't like Poison. I thought that just stupid. I didn't like Warrant, never liked Warrant, didn't like Poison. Poison grew on me a tad, but Warrant never did. I never liked Warrant. I did like Cinderella, but I didn't love Cinderella. It was really kind of Motley Crue. I also liked Wasp.
Yeah, I remember.
A crazy band like Wasp. I was really super, at that point, I was really super into Motley Crue at that point, kind of like about 14.
Okay.
About 14, 15. But see, this is kind of interesting because at the same time, and this is why I switched over to underground, because the idea behind metal is very macho. Even glam bands, it was very macho. Even though they dressed like women, it's still about how many girls you can sleep with, and it's about being macho. Well, I was anything but macho. You know what I mean? I was somebody who wanted to play guitar like Randy Rhoads, but I couldn't.
Right.
You know what I mean? And once I realized I couldn't, and that was okay. Like that's kind of where I was at. It was a facade for me to be macho. It's like I really wasn't that person.
Right.
But I wanted to be because everybody thought that was cool.
Right.
So at 15, what do you want to be? You want to be cool, right? And so I'm sitting here.
Nobody wants to be uncool.
Yeah. But the counterculture, this is kind of what defines that late 80s, early 90s alternative rock it was okay to be uncool, and it actually became cool to be uncool, if that makes sense.
Okay.
You had geek rock and things like that that kind of came out. So at the same time I was into this heavy metal stuff. I had a friend when I was like, dude, I'm not into that anymore. He said, yeah, that figures. And I was just like, well, why did he say that? And because he was a friend of mine during that time.
Right.
And he was like, well, you were always into all these other weird bands. Like I was always into like In Excess. I really liked some new wave, obviously. What was another band I used to be in? Some bands that were underground that nobody had heard of, but I really liked.
Right.
That were heavy metal. Bang Tango. I don't know if you've heard of Bang Tango.
I don't think I have.
They're pretty good.
Bang Tango.
Bang Tango.
Bang Tango.
Now at the same time, about 15, you had that show called Alternative Nation that came out on MTV, and there was this handful of bands that were coming out, like The Cult, and I was really into The Cult, and Jane's Addiction, and so it was like this transition. Like I was still kind of into this, but these other bands came out, and this girl, and this is kind of what settled it. And I remember I was 17 years old. This girl gave me a cassette tape, and it was the Violent Femmes.
Okay.
Another band I was into at the same time while I was still listening to heavy metal was Pink Floyd. I couldn't stop listening to Pink Floyd.
Yeah, I always kind of liked Pink Floyd.
But she gave me a copy of the Violent Femmes, and I don't know if it was the same year that Violent Femmes came out, but the same year that I got that tape was the same year that Man in the Box came out. Was starting to be played on the radio.
Alice in Chains.
And that was it. It was over for me. Well, then when Nirvana hit, then I was done. And the one of the reasons I switched over is not because it was popular. I was part of what came up with it, but I identified with it more. I identified with the depression of it more.
Sure.
I was like, look, I'm not this guy who's the king of 10 planets, and Yeah, I'm not that guy at all. I'm really the scared geek who, it really, spoke to me more.
Sure.
It was finally a music that was just like, well, this is really what you're going through, not really about the atmosphere. It was really about
Right.
more internal, what you're going through.
I embrace that kind of music.
That's
Alice
my
in
rant
Chains,
there.
yeah, Alice in Chains, and I did get into that. Who else, man? Guns N' Roses.
Guns N' Roses was a transition band.
Yeah.
They were technically considered metal, but they were considered what's called dirty metal.
Yeah, it wasn't exactly glam,
Yep.
but it wasn't. But it was. Yeah, it was its own genre almost in the metal scene.
Right.
Guns N' Roses, got into them. Again, that was the influence after I got out of the army. Was
But that
and during a little bit was that guitarist friend of mine.
Yeah.
You know.
But that sent me on that retro, like I was asking you about retro, and the reason why I asked is because that's what did that for me. So I'm listening to Nirvana, but I'm asking, well, what kind of bands did Nirvana listen to?
Right.
Because obviously Nirvana wasn't listening to Poison.
Right.
They weren't listening to. They were listening to the Pixies and the Clash and things like that. So I started to try to listen to that stuff too. And I just didn't know if that had happened with you when you started listening to punk. Did you start going back and going, oh, okay, there's all these other old punk bands that are out there.
Yeah, and glam really didn't start with glam. I mean, well, the earliest glam band that I know about was probably Sweet.
I never heard of
Never heard of them?
What is it?
Ballroom Blitz. I think the band was Sweet. Yeah.
Oh, Ballroom Blitz.
Yeah, and they were kind of the
I've heard
first
that
of
song.
the first of the glam band. If memory's serving me right, maybe if I'm wrong.
Sure.
Comment or
I talked
make a correction there.
I talked about the origin of glam bands in my video on hair. They also were called hair metal.
Yeah,
and it was one subset of heavy metal. It wasn't like all that heavy metal had to offer. It was just one subset. But it was a super popular subset for a little while there.
I guess for me, if the music that I listened to generally had to have more substance in the way it made me feel in the lyrical content.
Yeah.
So the disco and that kind of thing.
It was like cotton candy.
Yeah, it was like and I just knew even from an early age that was manufactured success. Where some of those bands, I mean, if you go back and you listen to some of the early rock bands, I mean, musically they were really good, and they filled out. I mean, the era of arena rock, some of those bands were just really very talented, i.e. Rush and things like that. But
Rush, not a fan.
That's all right. Man.
I know.
That's all right.
I know two of their songs. I know it was that joke. I know 3 songs, and I don't like 2 of them.
Right.
No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I didn't like all their stuff, but
I know that they're very talented musicians.
Yeah.
They're very talented musicians. They just didn't care for their songs, and I hate saying that. And I know people are going to get mad when on the last video where I talked about bands that I went in to start talking about bands that I didn't like, and I was kind of like, I want to be positive. But look, everybody's got different tastes, and I can't say 100% across the board that. Well, first of all, I'd never say that band sucks because they're phenomenal musicians, but it's.
It didn't do anything.
It didn't do anything for me, and Tom Sawyer's a great song, and then there's a couple other songs that I'm like,
it just didn't do anything.
It just didn't do anything for me.
When I was early in high school as a freshman, that was really was a very interesting time. I know we're kind of jumping all over here, but in high school, you really did have the cliques of different people. They're very distinct groups of people, and I guess there always has been to varying degrees, but it seemed like with the punk and metal movement, it really it just further defined those subsets of different kids
For sure.
in school.
Yeah. Yeah. If you were a punk, you look like a punk.
Yeah.
You know, if you were a metalhead, you look like a
Doc
metalhead.
Martens, ripped up jeans.
Right.
I remember them sending me home because I was wearing a bullet belt with
no.
real M60 machine gun.
Oh,
yeah,
really?
I got some of those. Yeah, that was cool, man. That was cool. They said, no, you can't bring that into school.
Well, I don't have a gun to shoot it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just the bullets.
Yeah, no belt-fed machine guns here, not hiding in my backpack, you know. Yeah. But that whole thing, mohawk, leather jacket, painted it myself, had the stud, did all the stud work on it.
Cool.
Yeah, the whole bit. Looked more like the British type punk, you know, the hardcore of the time. But that was my thing back then.
Yeah.
But then, but in the early '90s, okay, I looked more normal, I guess, whatever normal means. But then I got into Alice in Chains and had already been listening to Guns N' Roses and
that
Nirvana.
was...
I bought a Nirvana cassette,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know. So and at the time I was living up in the Pacific, you know. Well, I was living up in the Panhandle of Idaho, so I'm right next to Washington.
Mm-hmm.
So that had a, you know, I think there was maybe just proximity,
Right,
you know?
right.
But no, it was because a lot of the rock stations up there started playing the alternative type of stuff.
That exploded too.
Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Yeah. I liked the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
They were playing when I was a teenager back in California. They were playing college parties.
Yeah. I was more of a fan of Faith No More. I know there's a big Faith No More, Red Hot Chili Peppers debate.
Yeah.
I was really super into Faith No More when they first came out.
Never got into them, but my friend, that guitarist friend of mine from there, he liked them.
Mike Patton, the singer of that, He's also got some other weird bands too.
What was that other band that did? I can't. It was they were all the black guys playing rock. They Cult of Personality.
Yeah, Cult of Personality in Living Color. Living Color. Yeah, they were good.
Yeah, they were good.
They were pretty good. They were funk rock kind of band. I liked them a lot. Well, I was going to go back to a point. The reason why, New Wave fed in. I think New Wave fed into alternative in a way that it was separate from the punk movement. You do get some of that, the psychedelic feeling from New Wave in some alternative rock.
Kind of like bracketed the punk and metal movement of the 80s.
Yeah. So Jesus and Mary Chain is a very alternative band, but they're very psychedelic, almost sounding in their sound. You can really hear, influences of the Cure and things like that. Which I love the Cure, by the way. I mean, I'm a huge. I shouldn't say I'm a huge Cure fan. I like what they do. Yeah. So I like their popular stuff. Right. No, but if somebody puts on a Cure album, I'm all in.
Okay.
I'm
never quite got into them, but I will say this.
Did you like the Thompson Twins?
No, never did like them.
Oh man.
Yeah, they were kind of.
They were.
I don't know.
I like them better now, but that's the thing is I got into even later. I started getting into New Wave.
Okay.
Which was crazy because I liked New Wave when it came out because it was popular, and I was going to say this a while back, but the reason why New Wave was popular is because they produced better videos. If you noticed, and MTV first came out, and a lot of the rock were just scenes of concerts. But New Wave actually, if you look at New Wave videos, they actually,
I think that
made videos like video stories or something like that, and then so
I think I think the New Wave movement kind of propelled the music video. I remember that early on.
Yes,
they seemed to really propel the music video.
That's why they got popular.
Industry,
New Wave. But another band back then that was kind of stood on the edge of. It's called post-punk, the edge of punk and New Wave, and that was Joy Division. Did you ever listen to Joy Division?
I didn't get into them, but I recall them. Yeah. I can't think of a song they did, but Now you're talking about the goths.
Yeah.
And I knew this one gothic chick, and kind of had a thing for it. It was funny, but she introduced me to some of the gothic music. maybe one of the viewers out there remembers who did that song, Bela Lugosi.
If I had my computer here, I forgot to bring it.
That's all right. But yeah, some of that real dark, weird. That's all I can describe it. It was very weird music, but on the dark side of things. Yeah, I remember.
Did you like the resurgence of punk when it came out, like after? Because, and this is
personally, I don't think there was really.
Well, Rancid. You remember Rancid? Because Rancid didn't Rancid have some ties with Minor Threat? Wasn't that the same singer as I recall? I don't remember, but because alternative rock got popular, and people were looking at bands. Oh, who influenced these bands? And one of the genres was punk. There were some punk bands that came out that kind of came out, but you didn't like them. You didn't care for Green Day or Blink-182 or
a song or two.
Okay,
a song or two.
Yeah.
I kind of classified that, maybe unfairly, but I kind of classified that as pop punk.
Yeah.
You know, it was mainstream.
Yeah.
It was kind of mainstreamish. But you know, as far as their ability to play and everything, you know, the bass player for Green Day, who don't know his name, but
I forgot his name.
Yeah, he's a good bassist. You know, that's kind of my favorite instrument is the bass guitar.
I went crazy for Green Day when they first came out because it was 95. Well, they had an album out before Dookie, which was their popular one. So they had an album out before that, which I didn't know about. You know, I just didn't know. But then when Dookie came out, I went nuts. I was just like, well, this is great. This is going to be the next band that I'm into, kind of a thing. And I was, but after that, you started getting a lot of sound-alike punk bands, a lot of bands that I hate saying it because I do like some of Blink-182. I mean, I do like them. I do like a lot of what they do. But there just started to be a lot of bands that sounded like Blink-182 and a lot of bands that started sounding like Green Day.
Those are your manufactured successes.
Yeah.
They're riding.
And they'd probably be pissed if somebody said that, but oh well.
Well, it is what it is.
You had bands too that were just, I was like Creed. Like I'm sorry, look, with all due respect to the members of Creed, and I hate being negative, but it's just like, I just really didn't like them. I just really felt as though they were they were the copycat, just like, NBC produced Family Ties and ABC's got to produce Growing Pains.
Right.
So it was like, it's kind of like that. It's like, what are they doing over there? And I don't know, maybe this band over here was doing something and the record company just goes, oh, what are you doing over here? Let's just look there.
And again, that's when we talked about underground. That was the thing, is these were small, the Orange County, the OC punk scene, the Circle Jerks, the Vandals, Agent Orange, Social Distortion, and then other bands you had, the Adolescents and all these, and 45 Grave and DI, and these were all local bands
sometimes
that really because of the style of music that it had to be privately or small record label produced, because the big record labels weren't even going to touch that stuff. Right. It really was a time
until it got popular. Then the big record.
Until it got popular. Then they
polished.
Then the bands came out and they were more polished.
I hated that. Yeah. I hated that. One of the things that I actually loved about it was the Nirvana and particularly Nirvana and Alice in Chains was the very unpolished
sound to it. It's very
grunge. Yeah.
And early punk rock was the same way. Very raw sound to it. And
so I'm going to shift the topic just a tad.
Go for it.
For music, because this. So, and when we talk about underground music, the one subgenre of underground music is certainly punk.
Right.
But there are other underground music subgenres of underground music that have to be discussed, and that is one of those subgenres would be called what was called college radio, and sometimes they called it I can't remember if they called it left of the dial or right of the dial. And these were bands that did become very famous, but at the time they were not famous.
Right.
bands like
Probably the Chili Peppers.
REM, Chili Peppers, yep, for sure. REM, the Chili Peppers, U2, bands like that college kids in the 80s, that first wave of Generation X were super into. What do you think about any of those bands, or what was your take on those? Or were you? I'm sure you weren't into it. I wasn't even into them until after I got into alternative rock.
Yeah, at the time I was pretty much, when I first got into punk rock, I was too young at 13, 14 years of age to, I wasn't going to college.
Those people were in college when you were 13 or 14.
Yeah,
kind
exactly.
Of thing, yeah.
So, but no, I didn't have really anything to do with.
Even later, did you later go back and listen to them and go, this is really good, or no?
Well, the only band probably, that got any notoriety with me, and here's the thing, I didn't buy any of their, at the time, cassettes, or even later CDs, but if they were on the radio, I'd listen to them. It's probably Chili Peppers, yeah. But no, there were a lot of different bands that probably fit that genre, but no, that just really wasn't my forte at the time. It's just. Well, I don't have much to speak on.
It wasn't my forte at the time, but I definitely got into it later.
Okay.
And one of the bands that I absolutely am in love with. Well, I loved the band was REM. I loved REM. Not every album is great, of course, but some better than others. But I just thought of them as people who even though they didn't sound punk, they certainly did things their own way. They certainly were not following any formula or any step or anything. It was basically a genre of rock. It was rock music, but it was like kind of poppy rock, but it wasn't poppy rock like.
It had a lot of new wave influences to it, I think.
Yeah, kind of, but not. If you listen to it, there's really not a lot of
kind of its own thing.
Pop. Yeah, it's not synth pop at all. Where new wave is really kind of defined by some synthesizer in it. Yeah. He played the mandolin. I guess I shouldn't say that. I guess the guy who plays bass also plays some keyboard, so I misspoke on that. But to me, they had a lot of very deep, meaningful songs. If you listen to the lyrics on their songs, they are what I'm drawn to. The same type of thing that I'm drawn to in Nirvana, I'm drawn to in what he says. World Leader Pretend. Now some of it is just fluff, kind of stuff. Orange Crush. A lot of their stuff.
Wasn't a lot of that stuff up out of the Bay Area?
No, they were from Georgia.
Oh, they were from Georgia.
Yeah, they were from Georgia, as I recall. Yeah. So, they were from Atlanta, Georgia. There was a big music scene down there. Them and the B-52s.
Oh, okay. I remember the B-52s.
The B-52s were definitely a poppy rock band, or whatever.
I considered them kind of. I consider them more in the new wave class. Oh, we got to remember this one. This would have been. Where did I first see these guys? I think it was on Saturday Night Live. Devo.
Oh, Devo, yes.
Can't forget
For
Devo.
sure. Did you hear their latest album?
I have not.
It's phenomenal.
Is it really?
It's phenomenal. And
really?
I think we're talking like 2009 or something, so it's pretty old. But for Devo, that's new. That's new for Devo. But it's phenomenal. It's great.
Huh. I
saw him on. I saw the band play.
That's funny.
On Devo. There was that. I saw him on, I can't remember, the Jon Stewart show or something like that, where they had a musical guest, and it was outstanding. He was like top of the line good. I was like, I'm going to pick this up.
That's interesting. I'll have to check that out.
Another band, I don't know if you like him or hate him, but
wait a minute. Oh, no, go ahead.
The Pixies. I think
No, I listened. You let me listen to some of it.
Oh,
I just
man.
it just didn't do anything. for me.
they are in my my trifecta of bands that I would probably listen to if I was shipped on a desert island it would be Nirvana, REM, and the Pixies would be like my
Top three, huh?
top three. There are other bands in there. Jesus and Mary Chain would come super close.
Right.
Gosh, it would be too hard to choose. But we see what you're going to say. Then I want to talk just a tad bit before we go, not too in depth because I'll save it for another show about modern music.
Okay.
But what were you going to say?
I saw I think they're still playing around. They were a Southern California party band, and they put out some good stuff. Fu Manchu.
Never.
You ever listen to Fu Manchu? They did a cover of Godzilla by Blue Oyster Cult. Yeah, they're pretty good. I guess the last kind of music I kind of was introduced to that I really kind of got into was, in fact, it was funny. My cousin from Virginia got me into it when I went out there to visit. This was back in '01. So I had my stages of music, and then I just kind of, I don't know, I just kind of listened to whatever I thought was, whatever I liked.
Right.
But then I got about '01 and got introduced to Queens of the Stone Age.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I really got into them for a while.
Right.
Eagles of death metal, and that's kind of a comedy slash kind of rock band. They're funny.
Kind of novelty, novelty band or something like that?
Yeah, kind of, sort of.
Like Green Jello, remember that band?
No, I don't remember Green Jello. No, but Eagles of death metal, they're pretty good.
Or Gore or whatever.
Yeah, not quite like that, no.
Novelty bands.
Yeah, Queens of the Stone Age, Eagles of death metal, even got into 311. Even got into 311.
I like 311.
Very wide, diverse sound, of different types of music that they kind of bring together. So I enjoyed them quite a bit, but that was kind of my last kind of being introduced into a certain genre.
Yeah, it's still rock. It's kind of interesting because it's still
it's
Queens
just
of their own age.
Yeah, and then their first band, Caius, and when that all came out of, from what I understand, Riverside, San Bernardino, kind of real dirty, raw sounding, and that's what kind of I think attracted me. Was that kind of dirty, raw sound again. It was like, oh, I haven't because by that time there wasn't a lot going on in that arena. Or at least that I had heard, and then when I got introduced to them, it's like I like that. It's different.
Right.
Band. I guess here's the thing. Good music is good music, regardless of the genre.
Right? Oh yeah.
I may not get into jazz, but I will. But I have sat in Honolulu and watched jazz players play at a jazz bar. We're putting down some good drink at the time, back when I was in the Army.
But it's like an ugly girl. You drink enough, you'll like it.
Yeah, but
I'm just kidding. That's horrible to say, but I think that's what jazz is. If you drink enough, you're gonna like jazz.
Yeah, but if you actually watch them playing,
they're good musicians.
These guys are musicians.
I don't care for the genre at all.
Not a great fan
I'm
either.
Sorry,
but they're talented. They're good.
They're good, but I can't even think of a jazz song I like. So another genre, genre that I dislike, but I'll occasionally find a good song. Right. Is country. So I'm not really into country.
I'm not either. But there are some good songs out there.
But with jazz, like I couldn't even name you a song I like.
The point that I was going to make though is good music is good music regardless of the genre.
Yeah. There's a good difference though between talented music and good music to me. Okay. It's just like. Okay. And one of the things I don't like about jazz, and this is going to sound weird because it's going to tie into what I said about hair metal, like why hair metal started to die, is it's too pieced out. It's more about, so one of the things that started to go down about hair metal, like why it started to go down, why I started to not like it, and I think a lot of people started to not like it, is the songs sucked. But the idea was, well, yeah, but listen to my singer, look how high he can sing.
Oh, right.
And listen to the guitarist, look how cool he can do the licks.
How
It's like, yeah,
intricate.
but your song's not good. It's more about how fast the guitarist is and how high the singer is, rather than how good the song is.
Yeah.
And for me, jazz is the same way. It's just you got this, this guy playing the. I'm like, yeah, but really, it's not catchy.
Yeah,
to me.
yeah, and a lot of it's not. But what I was going to say though is, if the band is unique and different and nobody else really copied them, that was the thing with arena rock. Okay, for example, if we go back, Boston is Boston.
Yeah.
There's nobody that I can think of that sounds like, they're very unique. Led Zeppelin is Led Zeppelin. The Who is The Who. Rush is Rush. So even though we might all consider it rock, they were very unique in their own way. Same with Queens of the Stone Age. I don't think anybody's really copied them, because they're so unique that they're their own thing.
Yeah.
So I always kind of like that about certain bands, where you go, you know who it is, and they don't sound like a lot of like the music being produced today. A lot of times I'll listen to, I just don't want to offend anybody and start saying names of modern music, but all these gal singers. Name some different singers.
Like Britney Spears or something?
Yeah,
but we're dating. We're getting old now. Even that's not modern music.
No. But like the ones you're going to see on that. See, this is how I don't even watch it. This is the gal that sang at the Super Bowl. That was all the controversy because it was really risque or she was scantily clad. Who was that?
I don't know.
Beyonce.
Oh, Beyonce.
That kind of stuff.
Oh.
To me, that's, you get one of those, and then you get another one another one, in that same, and it all sounds the same to me.
Yeah.
To me, there's nothing. It's manufactured.
Yeah, it is certainly manufactured. That is certainly manufactured music.
Yeah, and I'm not saying they're not talented.
Yeah, she's got a tremendous voice.
Yeah,
it's good.
I just don't like.
I don't like the music.
And to me, it sounds the same as.
Well, that's different than underground.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously that is focused toward an audience, and we're trying to make money and all this stuff. And
millions.
we can debate that. It was less about. It really couldn't be classified as underground music.
No, I'm not saying it is. But what I'm saying is today's music seems to, you turn on your standard pop stations and it's like, yeah, that song sounds the same as this song.
Well, the record companies and stuff, have evolved as well to.
It's homogenous. It's homogenous
to produce this. Yes.
Yeah, it's all been homogenized, and it's all it's just pop.
Right.
But back then, there are bands, and a lot of them came out of the underground movement or were part of. They were, or early rock years, were very unique.
Right, and we could go on. As a matter of fact, I said that there.
And I like that about certain. What I'm saying is that's
every
the kind
genre
of music I
you
like.
could talk about for at least 2 or 3 hours.
Right.
Let me say this. One band and even they're starting to get old now, but their last album was 2017, and that is the band Brand New. If you've not heard that band, you seriously need to check them out. Their last album was phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. It's called Science Fiction. They're not brand new. They came out in 2003. Their first one was punk.
I think you had some of that playing in the car one time, man.
The God and Devil Are Raging Inside Me. That's a great album. Daisy's a great album. The one before that, I forgot the name of it. It's got like a French name. And they're phenomenal, and their lyrics are super deep. That's what I like about them. Like, what drawed me into, like an REM is the deepness of the lyrics, the thoughtfulness of it. It wasn't like, hey, we're gonna have a party, come over and take your shirt off. It was, hey, I'm really going through something here, and it's like, oh, okay. Nirvana the same way, although Nirvana's a little bit more cryptic in what they're saying. But Brand New is just a phenomenal band. And I know that the singer, I'm not going to mention this right now, but the singer's in some hot water, last I heard. But I like the music. I can't help but like the music.
I'll have to
And
check it.
everybody's
I'll have to check
innocent
them out.
until proven guilty in a court of law.
Right.
Bum bum. Anyway, all right, man. Well, thank you for.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate you
Yes.
having me on.
Yeah, and we will
And
talk
take care,
again soon.
everybody.
And
It was-
thank you
it was
for.
fun.
Yes, it was a lot of fun. It's something we can talk about again too, because I'm sure there are tons of things we want
Oh.
to talk about. And
You can take it into
a million
infinite
different-
number rabbit trails.
Yeah. Thanks. Please watch, comment, and subscribe. If you want to donate, there is a link in the description, which will be linked to my Buy Me a Coffee account. If you want to drop me some cash and help me get the maid that I've always wanted to have, and help my dogs eat better dog food than their Purina one, I would really appreciate it. No, so,
Give you more time for podcasts. And
yeah,
videos.
but yeah, of course, I don't even have a studio. I'm here. Well, I'm at another place. So eventually I want to do this professionally, and that's how you can help me. But please like, comment, subscribe, and share this on your favorite platform, your favorite social media platform. Help get the word out. Thanks again for listening to some Cereal for Dinner podcast, and we will talk to you again real soon.